You guys have to tell me what
Wait,
my
can you,
volume
like-
is like because
Let's restart though. Let's restart.
I'm restarting the thing now.
Okay, can you send me the link?
I couldn't even hear my voice.
Yeah.
Just look on Cheatown Topics. It's on the main page.
Okay.
Won't you ever leave? Could someone just send the link?
Yeah.
One second.
Imagine me not bringing my phone over here. Imagine that.
Imagine that.
lay down, son.
For what? Alright.
I was being fake angry with him, by the way. I just wanted him to think I hate him because I like when I'm intimidating to people, even though I'm really not.
Just saying fuck you repeatedly
Can you-
doesn't
can you see
exactly
it, Kyle?
convince
I said
people.
it
Yeah,
twice.
I got it.
Can you send a link in the
Did you
chat
repeat?
or something like that? Can you send
Yeah.
a link to someone?
Yeah, I'll send it.
No.
I'm putting it on my story right now.
Why not?
Because I need my phone.
Ask Tynan if he supports poor people being cured of illnesses.
Definitely doesn't.
I have until 10:30, by the way.
Okay.
Not tight schedule.
Oh no, no.
That Ninja Turtles.
Lay down, Sally.
Kyle, what's your least favorite minority?
What are you, Tynan breeds?
I am a devil woman.
No, it says
It's
entering
Carter's.
New Bedford, Mass.
Can someone add Carter to the chat?
I will. T to the third power.
I said that any love is good love.
Oh yeah. All right.
But
Good get. Oh yeah.
Can I just test the mic? Make sure they're level.
Two,
Check,
two,
check.
two,
Alright,
two,
this is like
two,
fucking
one,
loud as
two.
fuck.
What's
Alright.
up,
Alright, you guys don't really need to
weebs?
speak that loud because when I'm speaking like this is like a normal voice.
Yeah.
This is pretty loud.
What's up, weebs? I can pull a Nick Spodek on you all.
Oh, Carter, your mic level. That's like the.
oh. Okay. Alright.
Doodle-doodle-doo-doo.
Alright,
Oh,
check,
yeah.
check.
Okay.
Check. This is
So
so good.
you
Alright,
just be
Kyle.
like an inch
Kyle,
away from your mic.
Try
and
yours,
talk
try
a
yours,
little more.
try yours.
Check.
You
One,
need to
two,
be
one,
closer,
two.
a little bit closer.
A little bit closer.
Okay.
Okay.
Satch.
1, 2.
'Kay,
My
so-
name is
John?
Satchel.
John.
John, check.
John.
Oh, I
You're not
don't
even
have-
coming through. You just need to unmute him.
He's not muted.
That might be a bad mic cable. I can.
the wrong
one that I'm disconnecting. Where's the one I disconnected?
It is this one. Yeah, that'd be that.
Wow.
How did this end up on my phone?
Alright, John.
Check.
Hello? Testing.
No.
What? Say it again?
Hello?
You're not speaking in the mic.
Hello?
Put him. Just take the other end and put it in his mic. Are you sure? That might just be a bad Switch them again. and then- John, try this one. John, try this. Wait 1 sec. Yeah. It's in, right? Okay. And then John is putting it in right now. All right.
Testing?
Yep. You're a little close.
How is that?
That's a little loud.
That's about an inch,
How's
right?
this?
Okay.
How's this?
Wait, alright. Am I good?
Yeah, say it again.
1, 2. Hello.
Carter, I can help you mix too. Oh yeah.
Hello?
What up, Invaders? Chris here.
Kyle, why do you gotta diss our podcast like that?
I do that
Yeah.
every time.
Alright, ready? I'm starting.
I'm so ready.
Alrighty. You might. Yeah. Okay, that's fine.
Oh, man.
Is this a gain?
It's just for the.
Yeah.
We
No, set a alright.
precedent.
All right. Perfect.
Sorry.
All right. Are we going?
I like that sound
We've been
effect.
going for a little bit.
All right.
Sick.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Tea Time Topics, where we have political debates and hot takes.
Yeah.
Today, we'll be talking about the presidential candidates.
The Democratic presidential candidates.
Yes.
We
Oh.
will. We will.
Oh, yeah. We'll do that in just
We'll
a
do that
second.
later.
Just a little bit later.
Like now, maybe.
Yeah, so I'm your host, Kyle Gunning. Over to my left is...
Satchel Moore.
Over to Satchel's left is...
John Kelly.
In the audience is...
Sophia DeCola.
Sophia DeCola.
And to Sophie's left is...
Carter Ramsey.
And if we go full circle to Carter's left, it is back with me, Kyle James Gunning. All right.
Wow, this is the amazing part.
So we're going to kick it off with
Yeah.
some
Oh,
current events and an overview of the Democratic debates. So let's hop right in.
So we're basing this like whole discussion off of the debate that happened last, which was like 2 weeks ago.
I watched it.
We're
Yeah.
just focusing on the top 6 candidates because Castro's irrelevant, Klobuchar's irrelevant, and
Beto's irrelevant.
Yeah. So Andrew, so it's going to
Lucy
be...
has pasta. Lucy has pasta.
Oh, that's all right.
That's
It's
all
fine.
right.
Okay.
We can,
healthy.
We can let her choke and die. So there's Andrew Yang, Pete Buttigieg, Kamala Harris, Elizabeth Warren,
Did you
Bernie
say that right?
Sanders, and Joe Biden.
What was it?
Kamala Harris?
That's right.
Yeah.
No.
Elizabeth Warren? the Native American?
Bernard.
Did I not get all the inflections in the Native American name?
All right. Let's base our entire opinion of her off the Native American, please. I love when that happens.
So
All right. I just want to talk about, even though they're really relevant candidates, like they kind of influence other candidates to do something, like including Buttigieg, which is like bringing the Spanish language into the debate.
oh my
in order to
God.
target like the Latinx audience. So I want to hear your opinions on if the Spanish language has a place in an American debate for presidency.
No.
So,
No, it does not.
as Zach Melzar once said, you have to
not
speak
reference other
English.
people here, come
you, have, you have to speak English in order to be an American, really. I don't
All right,
believe in that.
can we just hold on? Can we just
We'll leave names out. but-
hold on? Let's leave first of all, let's leave names out. Second of all,
Yeah, come on, John.
No, I was referring to someone
no,
else.
hold on. Second of all, I don't think it should be a requirement to speak like English in like when you're in America, but I think you should know how to speak English well enough to be able to like listen to commands and stuff like that and stuff like that.
Well, if
Well,
I...
these
So,
people, they're all
I think-
capable
no,
of
this
speaking
is-
English.
this
It's
is-
just like
if
they
you're in
also
America,
speak Spanish.
you should be able to speak some sort of English.
Okay.
Some sort of
They're
English.
they're simply trying to appeal to the Latinx vote, and
Exactly.
it's pretty much like taking pictures on a farm, like as a presidential candidate.
So,
honestly,
if
it's a similar thing, and it doesn't really matter.
Some people are just really outraged by it, and I
Yeah.
just don't understand it.
I was a little outraged by it, but let me get into that in just a second. So
I think
but-
the Spanish culture is defining America more, and as a president, you have to understand that.
Yeah, well, it's definitely a progressive move, but if I've learned anything from The Alchemist, there's a universal language, and that universal language is love. And John, when I'm looking into your eyes across the table right now, all I can
Marianne
feel is
Williamson's no longer a candidate,
love.
so love is not a thing.
Anyway, so love is not a thing. All right, we'll electrocute the love out of you. So
Back to what I asked.
here's the thing is, I just thought it was completely pointless that they were speaking Spanish because most of the viewers of that program probably spoke English. I'm just going to go ahead and make a blanket statement. About 99% of the viewers that weren't infants probably spoke English.
Okay, I don't think
You
we should
know,
make
when I was a
we should
little
make up
girl-
a statistic right there.
When I was a little girl,
All right, next.
Anyways, no.
when I was a little girl, I used to watch this show called Dora the Explorer.
Mm-hmm.
This little girl taught the American people a different language, a different
Yes.
culture.
Yes.
Because we're talking about a Spanish example right now. Anyways,
Well,
Ahaha.
Kyle, to address what you said, I don't think that their aiming doing that was to like make themselves more understandable to their audience. It was
It was
like
more of a
it's
statement.
just like they want to make a statement that they would be able to support those people because they're struggling a lot.
yeah.
well, I
Just
mean,
go for Beto.
you can learn a language and still not support a people.
Yeah, but it's just
but
the way they
it's all
did it.
publicity, like everything that candidates do. It's
The way they
to
did
get
it to
support,
me,
so.
it just got on my nerves. Like it. When I saw,
Do you
Cory
think it
Booker's-
was forced by any chance?
Yes, it was. It
No.
looked so forced. It looked
Mhm.
like a PR team was like Joe Biden whispering into a little girl's ear, telling him to speak Spanish. That's what it looked like to me.
Okay,
No,
okay.
I honestly think it was the candidate's decision. I didn't see it, but
Yeah,
from
I
what
mean,
you're
it
saying,
probably
it sounds
was.
like it was the candidate's
Well,
decision.
I mean, if you
But it
know
was-
if you know Spanish, you might as well.
Yeah, but seeing Beto O'Rourke do it, like Cory Booker wasn't as bad. Like he has a better natural accent, but
Beto does not have an accent.
yeah, it was.
He was doing it
So
to
you're
just
judging
hop
them
on the
based on the
train.
accent.
No, I'm just saying it just looked very, very forced.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was cringe.
I just like.
Let me
Okay,
just say
okay.
it was
All right.
cringe.
I don't think you should like form
Moving
an
on.
opinion about a
Should-
candidate
should
based
we-
on like
Oh,
the
yeah, I
fact
know.
they spoke
Should
Spanish.
we-
or, like,
no, I'm
be
just
that
saying-
outraged by it.
I'm just saying in general.
And what
It-
you're saying about like how people seem like they're being like controlled by like outside parties.
Yeah.
I think the one candidate that doesn't seem like that to me is Andrew Yang, and that's like part of why I support him.
That's definitely true.
Okay.
That's definitely
Seems
true.
like more real than the other ones to me.
Yeah.
All right.
Or maybe that's
so
what they want you to think.
Do you
Who's
guys
they?
want to go down the list of
The Koch brothers.
ranking Democratic candidates?
I
in
read it
different
off in
opinion?
order. So the
There's
in last
one is
place-
Joe Biden.
No, we're gonna go from the
last.
bottom.
Okay.
We're gonna go from
so
the bottom.
So-
Okay,
So Andrew
so
Yang.
we're gonna go around.
No,
Number 6.
Number
First impression.
Oh, we're going from 6.
Yeah.
We're
He's
gonna go
number
around.
8 on this website.
You know, I think it's okay. We're gonna start with Andrew Yang.
Andrew
Andrew
Yang
Yang-
and Buttigieg, by the way, have just like
They're neck and neck.
they've like swapped in like a bunch of.
I mean, this is
polls that have been
Yeah.
done recently. So.
This is CNN politics.
Oh,
Wow.
Clinton
Trust
News
it.
Network.
Yeah, I don't know.
Trust it, baby.
All right, so Kyle, would you like to start
Everything's
first
biased
impressions
ever.
on Andrew Yang?
So first impressions on Andrew Yang as a conservative, right? From my conservative perspective, first of all, his fiscal philosophy. You know, it. I see you laughing over there, John. His fiscal philosophy, right? On this idea that if people get $1,000 a month, right, it'll
Mhm.
make them less likely to commit crime. Say, like that's one of the major reasons, right? Would you
Okay.
agree
There's a
with
lot
me,
of
Satchel?
people in like
Wouldn't
and, like,
desperation
minority
for money-
populations commit crime because they like are struggling to make
Yeah.
ends meet. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting perspective, and it would be, cool to see how that would roll out in 2020, and a very progressive sort of part for America, a role for America to take in the world stage, especially because Europe has really dominated liberal politics, so we can finally take some sort of socialist form and really implement it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it'd just definitely be an interesting thing. And he seems like a young entrepreneur. He's promising, and he knows what he's talking about. He's done the math.
Saha.
He's just a promising guy. All right, I'll hand it over to you, Satchel.
Yeah, just like that. I mean, I'm a big fan of UBI personally.
Yeah.
But like we've all heard, like I don't need to say like everything they said about like what it would help like all around everyone's lives, but like also because I put a lot of weight on like who can actually beat Trump and who can like sway Trump voters. Since he's so like fact based, so numbers based, that's
Yeah.
what a lot of conservatives look for. They don't look for any like emotional rhetoric like Kamala Harris has, for example. They look for numbers.
Yeah.
And Yang just like if you listen to him at the debates, he just spews out numbers constantly, and that would like that appeals to a lot of moderates and conservatives.
Yeah, that was definitely interesting for
and
me
the data shows that.
because most of the the
Looking at
candidates-
Trump, though, he does use a lot of pathos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so most of the candidates, right? When I saw them, they really didn't appeal to me. It was Cory Booker and Andrew Yang really appealed to me.
Yeah.
The rest of it seemed kind of like a joke in a way. So, I mean, it wasn't necessarily a joke, but yeah, it seemed like they were doing everything for good press.
Well, I
And-
mean, that's how all the debates ever have gone.
Yeah, it's really sad. But
It's a little
Andrew
bit too
Yang-
early to
bad
get
press.
passionate
Andrew
about
Yang
it.
and Cory Booker. I know Cory Booker's not on this list, but they actually seem
He's like right behind. So
yeah. Maybe
we
we'll
can
pull
talk
that.
about him if we want.
Yeah.
Okay, so UBI is a good system. I think if it was implemented correctly, it could help a lot of people.
Yeah, we just have a very
Um,
wide scale to work with.
The
So,
U.S.
we have to-
isn't
well-
necessarily the perfect in a perfect place to do it.
Yeah.
So let's see, 3.
So here's the thing with UBI in America. So because we have such a broad country to work with, is that we're gonna have to, are we gonna figure it out on a state level and a federal level?
So I just
Who's
want to
gonna
put a
nullify-
number out there.
Kyle was in the middle of it.
It's okay. It's okay.
Generally, per month, it's going to be $3 billion to keep UBI going. I just
We
wanna
have plenty
say-
more than that.
So,
Just a general
I mean, how
number.
much
That's
is
a lot
that
of money.
annually? How much is that?
That's a
annually?
lot of money.
I mean, I'm like, look,
I'm just gonna say it right
It's
here.
$36
That's a lot of
billion.
money.
annually it's $36 billion, right? So,
Plus or minus.
I mean, like, would that impact the deficit
Per year.
How much do we have to pay on public goods plus that, right? So you have to factor in all these things. Are families still going to get welfare, right?
Yeah.
So how much is
Yeah.
minimum wage going to go up?
UBI in a perfect world would eliminate welfare.
UBI in a
Yeah.
perfect world, yes, but that means everybody has to have a job technically. And so
Yeah.
what is the minimum wage going to be? Because universal basic income as the minimum wage.
Andrew
right?
Yang does not support raising the minimum wage to $15, like pretty much every other candidate does. So that's worth mentioning.
That
just
is
like-
very interesting.
Do you think that comes from his economic background?
I
as a
think it
CEO?
does. Yeah.
I think he's computing the numbers, he's doing the numbers. He knows what he's talking about.
The thing about UBI is like you have to think about it theoretically because there's nowhere you can just like point and say UBI worked there, so it's going to work here because
Well,
it hasn't been
they
on
did a
any
study
other
in
like.
Canada
Yeah, but like
I
Canada's
don't
so
think
much
that went over
different
too
from
and
America.
in Alaska. They
And like Alaska's another example, but it's like $1,000 a year, so that's like a lot different.
Yeah. But so yeah, that you bring up a good point. You know, state and federal level. What is going to happen? What if
then
Texas
again-
decides to nullify?
If everyone says that it's not going to work, we can be the first ones to make it work, which is a pretty.
Yeah, true.
That
It'd just
that
be
is
like
true.
a big leap
opportunity.
to make, and like
Mhm.
we won't be positive about
If
the
we want to
outcome
be
of
at the
it.
forefront, as Kyle said before, if we want to be at the forefront
Yeah.
of progressive politics, this
Europeans
would definitely
dominate
be a step in
that
the
right
way.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it'd be really important in our country's status to take that, defining step
If we wanna become
in front of Europeans because
Politically in the forefront.
Yeah.
oh, definitely. Yeah, because we fall behind in merit like almost every year. We fall behind in merit. Our views,
I'd
you
be
can
able
just
to
talk
peg
to
that on one specific person.
Yeah, I mean, you can peg it on multiple people. It doesn't matter. We've had our fair share of buffoons in office, okay? But so it's just like if we can take that step in front of that sort of like liberal turn that Europe is taking, right? Then maybe we can set ourselves up for prevalence once again, democratic prevalence.
That would be so insane. Like after Trump, just having that happen in our country.
Yeah, we could really turn it around.
And the other thing that I want to
yeah.
say about UBI is it's like hard to. It's just like a moral issue. If you believe that everyone is entitled to the money that they make, then you just like will not support UBI ever. Like, because Andrew Yang, his theory is that the only way that it's going to be feasible is if we tax corporations like Amazon and Apple, and like those top corporations.
Well, UBI would also fund the creation of small business, which is very important for
Yeah,
America.
right.
Well, I think what's important. So me, say it again. I'm conservative. I believe in the entitlement of money, right? And you're saying tax these corporations.
I'm
Are
a
you saying
libertarian.
that we should proportionally tax bigger corporations proportionally more money, right?
Yeah.
So I think it'd be good. Like we can do that, but what's important for conservatives is, or just Republicans. I'll just say Republicans because that's the American stage right now. Is that we identify and acknowledge that it's not necessarily a just thing to tax other people more than others.
What are you saying? Like on a percentage basis?
No, morally. I'm just saying morally. It's not necessarily
Do you
just.
mean taxing more because they're making more?
Yes.
So let's say, completely irrelevant example here. There's a small business. I'll use small numbers. They make $1,000 a year,
yes.
and they have to pay 2% of their revenue in tax.
Yeah.
That 2% is going to be smaller than.
Oh,
the
of
revenue.
course. But I'm saying like if you take bigger businesses like Amazon and you say I want to tax them 16% rather than the smaller business that's being taxed 2%, so we can really just start off this universal basic income thing.
Mm-hmm.
I totally believe in a proportionate tax of like 2% for everybody, like
Yeah.
across the board.
Yeah.
I strongly believe in that. Like that aligns with my moral values. If you can do that, right, then you have my vote
Obviously.
Yeah.
as a conservative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just think there's a certain amount of money that people don't need. Like where you cross a certain point, you don't need that money, and you're never going to use all that money.
Okay. So are you saying tax like individual people now?
Well, corporations. It's what the UBI is going to be based on.
Yeah. Okay. So should we move on to the next candidate? So
Anything else about Andrew Yang?
No.
He's climbing. He's like going up in the polls every single time a new poll is done. He's like getting higher percentages. He raised 10 million Q3.
so do you
Kinda
think
going
we
off.
have the time for him to really get up there?
I think the best case scenario for him, I don't think it's likely that it's going to become the president, but I think that like normalizing the idea of a UBI and like making everyone more familiar with the idea of a UBI
Yeah.
is what I think is valuable about him.
So if you interviewed him and he answered with 100% honesty, he would say that he's doing this presidential candidacy in order to spread his ideas and to become at like the forefront of American politics.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't be surprised if he lost this election, but then moved on to I don't know, maybe even becoming like a congressman or a senator.
Yeah, definitely.
But I think this is a way for him to kickstart his career.
He's
in
getting his name out
politics,
there. Yeah.
and that's what he wants to do.
Like economic advisor or something.
Also,
Yeah.
though, has he said anything about global warming? Because global warming has to be addressed.
He has, I mean,
I mean,
pretty
if you
much
don't know off the
everything
top
he
of your head,
says
it's
like
fine.
connects back to UBI. I know he's talked about global warming.
Has he just said like I'm gonna
Would
address
pretty
UBI
much-
solve global warming?
He's pretty much talked about global warming like the same types of ideas that like the other more moderate candidates are talking about.
Okay.
I don't think he's like in support of the Green New Deal or anything, but
Okay.
I'm
He's
not in
definitely-
support of the Green New
it's
Deal
definitely
either.
a
Global
concern
warming
of his global warming. Yeah,
Is a problem. I think we can all agree.
for sure,
it's a
for
problem.
sure.
It is a problem.
So should
It's
we move
the
on to
number one
scientific,
national
yeah.
securities?
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Not the border.
So let's move on to Buttigieg here. So who wants to start us off with Buttigieg? I personally don't know as much about Buttigieg for whatever
So,
reason. Yeah.
John, talk about
Fun
Buttigieg's
fact.
backstory because I know you've read a lot about his
Yeah.
backstory.
Okay. Fun fact: Satchel and I saw Buttigieg speak, and impression from that, he's a very intelligent person.
Yeah.
Great speaker.
He's a great speaker.
Yeah.
He's a skilled rhetorician. So his backstory is that he grew up in a town called South Bend, Indiana. Both of his parents were professors at the University of Notre Dame.
Yeah.
So he did grow up in an upper middle class family that was very placed a lot of emphasis on intellect.
Mhm.
He in his memoir he kind of pushes like the whole small town vibe, even though he kind of grew up on a college campus. He went to Harvard. A particular fact I want to point out is that while talking about Harvard in his memoir, or just in general, he doesn't once mention the homeless population in the square, which is interesting considering he wants to be a president for the American people. I think he's kind of living in a world where everything is like too perfect, I guess.
Yeah.
He went on from Harvard to become a Rhodes Scholar and studied at Oxford. Got all A's, of course. So he's a very smart person. Not they don't really give out Rhodes Scholar to anyone. He worked for a kind of a shady corporation for a little bit, and he doesn't speak about like how. So this is a corporation that kind of hires directly from Harvard, and they I don't really know how to put this, but they've been like consulting for like some shady parties, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And again, throughout his memoir, he doesn't really touch upon that. He just says it was a good opportunity for him and he enjoyed working there. And there's a possibility that he just never really uncovered the corruption at that company, but the odds of that being true are very low. So from there, he went and joined the military, mainly inspired by the events of 9/11 and patriotism. And he served a tour in Afghanistan. And while he was there, I don't think he faced combat. As he said, he was pretty much just like turning off the lights, and he's still surprised that there are soldiers there. He went back, he became the mayor of South Bend, Indiana. And the main thing I want to talk about that when he was the mayor of South Bend, Indiana, was his the 1,000 homes in 1,000 days, I believe, that initiation. And
Wow. 1,000 homes in 1,000 days?
I think
But-
so. It was pretty much a program to knock down condemned homes. And the homes weren't
I thought
necessarily...
he was building a home a day.
No. South Bend has a problem with poverty. Actually, a high percentage of the population in South Bend are below the poverty line, and
Yeah.
most of those people are not white.
Yep.
So that's an interesting fact to include. So anyways, the way he got the 1,000 homes in 1,000 days initiative done was that he increased the rigors that people had to go through. and most people that were living in those homes couldn't afford it, so they were in a sense evicted.
Yeah.
And from there, he would pretty much demolish their homes. So looking at it from that point of view, it doesn't look too great for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He does typically cite it in debates as a good thing he did, but if you really look into it, it starts to get a little bit muddy. So I think
Yeah.
that he checks a lot of boxes.
Intellect.
Intellect.
Yeah.
He's a veteran to appeal. He's also gay. I forgot to mention that. So he does check a lot of boxes, which is a little suspicious considering he's like almost like the perfect candidate per se to
Yeah.
appeal to a wide range of voters. So
Wait, so he doesn't really acknowledge homeless people?
not really.
He's in like
which is
super hot
interesting.
water right now, like with his own town of South Bend, because like
Yeah.
there's like a ton of police brutality issues that have happened in like the past few years
Yeah.
that he just like hasn't addressed. He hasn't like fixed the police system there, and the whole poverty thing. And he gets questioned about it at debates and stuff, and he just like doesn't come up with good answers.
Mm-hmm.
And that whole thing about like looking deeper into things and them becoming pretty muddy is like a recurring thing for him in like a lot of areas.
Yeah. So on the surface, before you dive deeply into his character, he's this shiny candidate who checks all these boxes.
Yeah.
But in reality, he's kind of like falsely modest almost.
Yeah.
Pete Buttigieg. So when he was a kid in high school, he was elected president of his class. He was also a pianist who was very talented. Who
Yeah, he's like a
competed in-
virtuoso jazz pianist. Apparently.
in
Wow.
concerto competitions, and he plays it down, saying that, "Oh, I'm not even that good." But he did play. He actually played Blue Rhapsody with his town's orchestra,
Oh, wow.
which is a
Rhapsody
really
in
good piece.
Blue?
Rhapsody in Blue. I mean, by Gershwin, I believe.
Yeah, it's Charles Gershwin.
Yeah.
Gershwin.
So he, if I'm gonna get a little bit of a conspiracy theory here,
yeah.
Oh, boy.
I
Go
think
for
he's
it.
an
Go for it.
industry plant.
Okay.
He checks too many boxes for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So.
he's just like really good speaker. Literally like to the T an Obama impersonator on like everything that he says.
Mm-hmm.
And
So-
like he just like personally, I want someone who goes far like further than him in certain areas.
Oh,
Like,
also.
In healthcare, for example, I'm not
Mhm.
like completely sold on Medicare for all who want it.
Yeah. Also, I mentioned the Rhodes Scholar thing. For people that might not be very familiar with that, it's something that they hand out to.
Excuse
Sorry, it's something that they hand out to academically talented people. But most of the people that receive that Rhodes Scholar Award, it's an award, right? Most of the people that receive that are typically considered as rule followers, and most of Rhodes Scholars don't really make a mark on history. So I think that
Right.
if he was in a situation, especially in a corrupt corporation, I'm forgetting the name of what it was at the moment, if someone could look that up. I think that he could easily be influenced by somebody that he could see in like a higher position of authority than him in order to do something like, I don't know, run for presidential candidate or something
Yeah.
in order to be a puppet.
So he seems kind of like you walk into the dollar store and you see a G.I. Joe on the shelf.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's put it that way.
It's shiny.
Yeah.
Yes.
And his version of the world is very much the same way.
Okay.
Yeah.
He
Actually,
doesn't necessarily see
he
bad.
seems so rehearsed, like whenever he talks. It's
in his
Yeah, he
memoir,
does.
he writes about talking to a black firefighter, and the firefighter pretty much says something along the lines like, "How do I know you're just not sweet talking us in order to take advantage of us?" He says it in a little bit of a different way, but I'm not going to say that. And Pete literally didn't know what to say, and that's a bit of a red flag when someone says like, "How do I know you're not scamming me?" and you don't
Don't
know
have
what
an
to
answer.
reply
It's a
to
little bit of a
that.
You don't have an answer to
I'm
it.
a little
That's
concerned about that specific anecdote.
Okay.
All right.
So
Yeah,
he seems
just
a little
like-
sketchy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and in terms of policy, I think we should talk like in terms of policy, like
Yeah,
'cause that's also a thing.
Does he have a global warming policy?
I'm sure he'll just say like, "Oh, Green New
yeah,
Deal."
it's gonna be like,
hey."
cut carbon emissions by 20, and yeah, gonna be that guy. But like, he just like doesn't have anything that grabs me like other candidates do, and that's like why
Mhm.
he's not gonna be like my candidate that I go like full in on. He just like he checks boxes, yeah, but like
Yeah, so I'm like looking over my notes on the first debate, and I didn't write down anything.
yeah,
he said.
exactly. That's what
Yeah.
yeah.
Like it was all. It just seemed to be lost.
What
He
did your
does
notes
speak
say?
Spanish though.
What do your notes say?
It
Who-
said I didn't write down anything on Pete Buttigieg.
Who is mostly taking up your notes? Which candidate?
Probably
tried to-
Joe, Bernie, Warren.
Do it on
Kamala.
everybody.
Oh,
Really
okay.
Cory Booker.
You just don't have anything on him?
Cory Booker.
Okay,
Well,
who's up
Buttigieg.
next?
No, on Buttigieg. You don't have anything on Buttigieg?
Next is Kamala
Buttigieg?
Harris, I believe.
Yeah. I don't have anything on
Let's
Buttigieg.
talk about Kamala
Kamala
Harris.
Harris.
Oh, let's go.
Smoke and
Kamala-
mirrors.
Okay, so here's the thing. Kamala Harris, I don't even know what to think.
She's
like,
really completely emotional rhetoric.
yeah.
Like every time she speaks. In
I mean,
any
that's what the
setting.
American public wants.
Is Kamala Harris?
She's falling. She's dropping in the polls hard.
Okay, so wasn't she a district attorney? She was district attorney of California, right?
Of California.
Yeah.
She's kind of like
Yeah.
when you're starting a fire and you only use newspaper and it flares up really, really brightly, but then it doesn't really have any substance.
So I keep seeing
Put it
these
that way.
commercials on YouTube, and it's like, I think it's Kamala Harris.
When I was a little
I'm
girl,
pretty sure. No, it's like, I served in the military, so I'm an American, and that's
You
why
might be
you
seeing
should
Tulsi
vote.
Gabbard.
Oh, that might
That's
be Tulsi
definitely
Gabbard.
Tulsa. That's
Okay.
definitely Tulsa, yeah.
Yeah, those are just the most demagogorous, right, John?
Interesting.
The most demagogorous commercials I've
Would you like
ever
to
seen.
define that word for our listeners?
Yeah.
No,
for
we'll
everyone
book
that's-
out through that.
It's
everyone
just
else
me
in
and
the
John
fucking
have a
crowd.
little. We have a
Yeah.
little thing.
Excuse me.
Have a thing where we
A
make up a word.
Demagogue, verb, demagogue. To be a demagogue, or would that be a noun?
It's a noun. Yeah.
Is somebody who changes the perspective of an argument to appeal to certain people.
Mhm.
It's in a way
So every
a
candidate
type
does
of
that.
rhetoric, but it's not good.
I mean, keep in mind that they're running for office. Like,
So no, it'll be like I look up Ben Shapiro and then I see this commercial. Okay, so you know it's like for like Republican algorithm. So
yeah. I mean, what's wrong with like trying to
oh nothing,
appeal
but
to an audience?
just the way that she does it is so weird.
This is Tulsi.
It's
you know we're
like
talking about Tulsi.
very fake. Yeah, it's just very fake. Anyway, back to Kamala. Okay.
So she was the attorney of California. She has a shady history.
Yeah, you
in,
want
like,
to
the
elaborate on
prison
this?
system.
Is this
I mean, who
bus
doesn't?
thing? What is this bus thing?
That was Joe Biden.
Okay, the busing thing.
That was Joe Biden, though.
I thought
she pretty
I thought
much
that was
wrong.
Kamala.
She kind of like tried to bite off Joe Biden's head,
Yeah.
and she used a lot of language that wasn't necessarily based in the real world.
Yeah.
She kind of painted a picture. She said when I was a little girl like 18 times. That's why I keep saying it.
Oh.
It's
Yeah,
kinda
yeah.
funny. So, and she's also, I think it was an ill-founded argument, and she was yelling a lot, and Joe Biden just kind of sat there and smiled
Yeah,
because
that's
he knew it wasn't true.
That's his response to everything.
It kind of, yeah, he doesn't really know what to do. We'll get to that later. It kind of fell short than what she was. She kind of tried to attack him, but she didn't have a good idea of what actually happened in that situation.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, she's also just like a big flip flopper on a lot of issues. Like she's
Mhm.
flipped on marijuana legalization a ton of times, just to bring that up. And then also there have been a lot of instances, like one in particular in California, where she was saying that she was going to like free a bunch of these criminals who were like wrongly accused. There was like this whole group of criminals who were wrongly accused, and she didn't free them because she needed them for a labor system.
What?
And they were all minorities.
That's very wrong.
Okay, and the scary thing is that the
It's like-
uneducated voter is going to look at her as a colored woman and be like, "Oh, we'll make history by voting for her."
Okay, let me just say
Jamaican.
there is a problem with intellectual diversity in America. It is completely ignored by, dare I say, racist people who want to elect people just because of the way they look.
Do you think that would provide a certain perspective?
It could provide a certain perspective, but it is
Yeah.
like crumpling up America, burning it, throwing it in the trash can,
Okay.
and then incinerating the ashes.
Do you think that the founding fathers had intellectual diversity?
The founding fathers didn't necessarily have intellectual diversity, but you have to put yourself into the perspective of the time period that was intellectual diversity. The delegates at the Virginia Convention, right? They're pretty much like these representatives of state, like the chosen representatives. And
Yeah.
when it's demographically white men are educated, they're the only people who can act in politics. It just makes sense. Like I hate to say it, but I wouldn't send a slave to the Virginia Convention.
Yeah, you wouldn't enslave them in the first place, hopefully.
No, I wouldn't. But I'm saying,
And then
like,
you would send an educated black person to there because
exactly
they're equal to white people at that point,
Exactly.
yeah.
But because of white people, slaves were uneducated.
yeah.
And like, really, the white upper class were the only people who could act in politics because they were the only educated people.
Yeah, but
And
I mean, you
it's
can't
sad, but yeah.
blame black people that have
No.
struggles that black people have that want to elect a black person because they know that they feel like they'll have some type of like trust for that person because they
Yeah.
experience what it's like being a black person in America.
Yeah,
But
but
what if it was a person that grew up in a middle class family or an upper middle class family?
and they didn't understand.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, well, not understand. This is a very
Well, you can look
risky
back easily
topic.
into the
Yeah, it
past
sure
of
is.
every candidate. Like every candidate's past is pretty publicized. Like
Yeah.
their childhood.
So it's just like, look, intellectual diversity, cannot stress it enough. It's funny because it is racism. It is like inherent racism to ignore intellectual diversity. So it's very hypocritical, and I see it a lot. It's liberal fascism. Okay, anyway. Anyway, back to Kamala Harris.
Well, it's not really racism.
Well, yeah, by definition.
let's
it is.
move on.
Yeah, it's
Let's
just
move on.
it gets weird. It gets weird.
I think people's emotions would win out on this one.
Yes.
Racism is just attaching certain abilities to certain
Mm-hmm.
or
races of
prejudice.
people.
Yeah. Anyway, as you were saying, John.
Okay, moving on. Who's up next?
But can we talk about policy because we keep like skipping over like
Yeah,
what
yeah.
they're actually
Okay.
proposing?
Yeah.
So Kamala flip-flop a lot.
Though I'm reading here that she's unveiled a middle class tax cut legislation last fall, and she has championed a liberal civil rights agenda in the Senate.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she has made some splashes in the Senate. She drew notice for her questioning of Trump's cabinet nominees as well as Brett Kavanaugh.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So I think she's very anti-Trump.
Okay.
Yeah, she attacks Trump frequently if you watch those debates.
Yeah. I think she said
Ends all her
she made a,
arguments with, like, Trump's name,
Wizard of
yeah.
Oz. Didn't she say something about Trump being the little man behind the curtain at some point? In one of
Probably.
the-
Yeah.
It sounds like her.
I remember her
Um,
saying that.
So I think something with the Democratic debates is stop talking about Trump. We want to hear about the Democrats. We don't want to hear about the one
most
Republican.
most people want to hear about getting Trump out of the White House. Like
Yeah, but
most of the country doesn't support Trump.
But I'm saying like the Democratic debates, right? If they get elected, that means Trump is out of the White House. So I just want to hear about when you step foot in the Oval Office, what is your administration going to do? What's your cabinet going to look like? How are you going to implement your administration and enforce these laws that we have and make our country a better place?
Yeah, but it's like since we don't
That's what it comes
operate by
down
the
to.
since
Yeah.
we don't operate by the popular vote, it's like
Yeah.
they have to voice a strategy that they have to win over certain groups of people, and like we just don't have a popular vote. So
Well,
it's not like
it's like good, like you're saying that attacking Trump can get a lot of
yeah.
helpful
It's
hands.
low-hanging fruit.
Yes.
Do you want to mention Trump all the time? No, but
No,
you should
definitely
never
not.
mention Trump. No.
Yeah, I just think it's a little bit of a waste of time, and I can see where the rhetoric comes in.
Yeah, like rhetoric. I mean, when I hear someone mention like a certain thing that that like leads to them beating Trump, I think like yes, that's a good thing. Like I respond to that when someone mentions Trump, but like when they do it all the time, it's off-putting. I agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like talk more about what you're gonna do. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, moving on.
So Elizabeth Warren, let me just say, beast in the Senate.
Literally so active in the Senate,
Yeah.
so specific.
Kind
with
of a
everything.
polar opposite of a certain person.
Bernard.
All right. So beast in the Senate.
Absolute beast in the
Will
Senate.
that translate to
Okay.
the president?
If you want to see the best thing ever, you look up Jim McGovern's Instagram, and he's the other senator of Massachusetts, and you see him post about Elizabeth Warren, and it's just like they're like that old married couple you just want to be. So
Okay.
they're
Yeah.
just absolutely amazing.
I feel like no one takes issue with like her as a person. It's mostly like her like policy that's like too progressive for them or something. Like,
well, yeah. Here's the thing.
She's
it's like,
probably one of the strongest on policy.
yeah,
Yeah.
So she's pushing for
but
a
I mean,
raised
people
minimum
who
wage.
like are really against
Mhm.
progressive ideas.
But she talks about a lot livable minimum wage, raising minimum wage.
Yeah.
She's raising minimum wage in Massachusetts as we speak. That's what she's done in the Senate.
She
And-
endorsed the Green New Deal, worth mentioning.
Yeah. So,
The Green New Deal is.
but I mean, how
It's a
much of
tough one.
endorsing the Green New Deal was her hopping on the bandwagon?
The Green New
I
Deal.
support the Green New Deal. So
The Green New
that
Deal
wasn't a
is
negative
not
comment from
effective
me.
whatsoever. I'm just gonna put that out.
I
there.
don't think it's effective either. I think it's just completely
Endorsing it is more for the
It's-
publicity than for the actual
Yes.
end.
It's
It's like
unrealistic.
completely science based.
Do you think
it's
she
just like
was-
super radical? But I mean, science shows that it would benefit us.
Oh, obviously, but I just think it's unrealistic. But do you think she was hopping on the bandwagon when she subscribes to this Green New Deal?
Well, I think that all politicians hop on the bandwagon once in a while.
Okay.
Um,
She definitely has before, and that's what worries me. Like every once in a while she does it, and then other times she's just a strong player that you can rely on, heavy hitter. So it's really like
do you see?
Yeah,
back
she
and
did
forth
start
every
off
once in
as
a
like pretty much just like totally moderate,
yeah.
and now she's like really progressive, like one of the most progressive candidates there. So
Yeah,
so
so
do you think her political standing is easily malleable?
well, it depends like if like how much pressure she's under with the public. It's almost like I see her career as a roller coaster. It's going up and then it dips a little and then it goes up and then it dips just
Yeah.
a tiny bit and now like it's on this rise,
Yeah.
right?
So when is the dip going to come?
So that's what I don't know. We're all anticipating this dip. We're all afraid of this dip. A lot of conservatives are afraid of this dip. And me, I don't want the minimum wage to be like progressively raised, which is what she's talking about. And she's talking about like a plan where it's going to like go up and up and up. And that's
Yeah,
what's
it's like-
happening in
yeah.
Massachusetts.
Do you
intervals.
think she has the possibility to compromise on any of her policy?
See, that's the
that
thing.
I really would want to see her like take it more of a moderate running mate, like Buttigieg or someone like that, just to like bring her like back to
So
earth a little bit.
That's
So
true.
when-
Some of her policies.
to win this election, what a candidate needs to do is to focus most of their efforts after winning the primary.
Mhm.
So to win the primary, you would have like a mainly left argument because you're appealing like only to Democratic voters.
Yeah.
But once you get the nomination, you would like we're going to see a shift where they're going to be appealing to conservative voters more
Yeah.
because any Democrat really is never going to vote for Trump.
That's
So
true.
they already have
Yeah,
like
that's what's-
half the
yeah.
votes guaranteed. So we're going to see a shift in everybody. I just want to see if that shift in Elizabeth Warren is going to be like how big that is going to be.
That would
Because
be
they're going to
interesting
be
to see.
trying to appeal to the conservative voters at like exclusively after
Yeah.
they get the nomination.
So here's the thing is I totally, that was actually really interesting what you said is that they're not really trying to appeal to conservative voters right now because it's, the Democratic debates.
yeah.
And we're trying to figure out
Except for like
who-
Andrew.
Yeah. But I mean maybe he's not like trying to.
Right
So-
now, trying to
He
appeal
mentions it a lot, so like it
Right
seems
now,
like
trying
he's
to appeal to
something that he's
Republicans is
aware
kind
of
of
and that
a-
he's like trying to do.
bad move to make if
Yeah.
you're trying to get elected.
We're at a very partisan point in our country and it's sad.
You definitely have
It's
to
very
appeal to
scary.
moderates though.
Yes,
like that's
for sure.
why Joe Biden. Well, no, that's not why because it's all name recognition. But like that's another reason why Joe Biden is like in the top.
Oh, Joseph.
Yeah.
Look at him later.
We'll get to him. Yeah.
Fucking deer in headlights. Anyway.
So I mean, also, Elizabeth Warren, you said she wanted the Green New Deal. Do you think if she was in office, that's something that she would try and implement because now she has executive power?
No, I mean obviously, that got voted against by like everybody.
Okay.
So I
This is a
think that
bad
she.
plan.
So she knows that she would be unsuccessful in trying to pass that.
Yeah.
But maybe she would try to like take some elements of that and implement them gradually.
yeah.
So the way she operates is that she's willing to work with anyone and
Yeah.
get anything done in order to advance her policy. And I think if it comes to the point where compromise is needed,
Thank you.
I think she'll be able to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. That's good. I really hope that we can see her spread her wings and fly into political office like a graceful bird.
Yeah.
So shall we move on to Bernie Sanders?
I don't see any problem right now, like, There's literally no reason that I wouldn't vote for Elizabeth Warren.
Okay. All right. So
But okay, Bernie
Bernard,
Bernard, the
I-
man.
don't know what to think about Bernie Sanders.
Bernard reflects
Okay,
a lot of what
so-
Elizabeth Warren has in her ideas, but
So
he's just
Elizabeth
like
Warren.
as far as his
That was a mic
position
stand.
in the
So
It's okay. It's okay, John.
he's just like a way less active member.
that's what I was gonna say.
In the government.
Polar opposite.
He's, like,
of Elizabeth
past-
Warren.
I don't know what the number is, but like he's just done like a very concerning amount of like nothing. Especially compared to Elizabeth Warren, who's done so much. And so that's my main concern with him. Like I said, he has a lot of the same policies of Warren, which I love. So like that's the main thing for me.
I think what most people just remember Bernie Sanders running as this sort of almost like an independent in 2016, and you
Yeah.
think marijuana. That's that's what you think with Bernie Sanders. Like
I
Vermont.
think free college.
but oh, you think so? Actually, I think that. Sorry, I just screamed. That's very interesting. Free college. What are we gonna do? So, UBI and free college, right? How much is free college gonna cost?
Well, there are many institutions right now that are for-profit institutions,
yeah.
which isn't necessarily a good thing. I understand that colleges need to make a living,
Yeah.
but in this world where you need a college degree in order to live, honestly,
Yeah.
colleges feel that they can charge any amount in order to boost their revenue.
It's a monopoly.
And I
It
feel
is-
like
they have a monopoly.
sure.
there is some sort of
And if you
We need
if you
trade and trust
topple
laws
that
on college.
monopoly, free college for all will become more feasible.
Okay.
and I feel
That's
like
the problem
I feel
that
like
he needs to tackle first.
especially nowadays with college, I've heard many cases of people paying to get in a sense.
Oh,
Where people just pay, like they meet with the college people, they pay an outrageous amount. Their kid gets into college, does nothing but parties, and then the
money
colleges
rules
are
the
fine.
country. Money rules everything in this country.
Ellie.
That's like the big
Ellie.
overarching thing that I want to stop.
Money rules everything ever.
I
Get
know.
rid of lobbying.
Yeah, honestly.
That's the first thing I would do if I got into presidency.
Get rid of lobbying.
Andrew Yang's campaign's like completely grassroots.
Would you kind of take it like a like they do in England, where each candidate has a certain amount of money given to them that they can base their campaign off of? Or do you think
Democracy
America
Now?
is,
Familiar with
America
that.
is just too big? There's too many states that you can't.
I think
Are you
Yeah,
aware of
money.
Andrew Yang's policy of democracy dollars?
No, I'm not.
Where he's giving like a certain amount. I don't know what the amount is, but to like every person, when there's a election, and that money is designated to being given to a candidate of their choice.
Oh wow.
So it's supposed to eliminate like
You know what his plan sounds a lot
some
like?
of the
Game of Life.
some
You
of
just-
like
you get a
huge
base
amounts of money that are
salary.
being given to like.
You get money for
To
giving to
candidates.
people you like. You get you get all this stuff. It sounds like the
Let me
Game of
look up
Life.
exactly what.
Well, happiness. Yeah, but so free college. Obviously, education in America is a right. It's a right to everyone. Public schools. So, it's an interesting perspective. I think you'll definitely have to declare college on a federal level a necessity. That's what you have to do. And that means curriculum's going to change. So it's not going to be K through 12 anymore. It's going to be K through
Whatever you want.
16 or like masters.
But it also depends, because if someone gets a
like-
doctorate degree,
Yeah.
master's degree,
Exactly.
associate's degree,
Exactly.
it depends on. I don't know. We'd have to figure out how to address those issues.
Yeah, this would also take a lot of stress off of our youth. Definitely.
I would like to make
Yeah, we have a huge youth mental health
a
problem.
correction to my previous statement. It's tuition-free public college, so the private schools wouldn't be affected.
So
the
there'd
private
still be an
schools would
option.
see-
There'd
would-
still be an option.
The private schools would have to lower their prices in order to win back students.
So tuition free. So you'd still pay for room and board. So it's pretty much like in Massachusetts. We have in Massachusetts. If you get advanced on all of the like science-based MCAS, right? You get free tuition, and it only saves you like $3,000.
Well, no, the thing is,
Yeah.
it's no. If you get advanced on all your MCASs
okay.
in high school,
yeah,
you get like $3,000 towards like a state school,
yeah.
which literally is nothing because now the
It's-
state school,
you still have
the
to pay,
state
like,
school of like
15,000.
Amherst is like what, like $30,000 a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's
So
it's
then you're
outrageous.
all
just
paying
going up every year,
27,000.
yeah.
Yeah.
We need to do something about college education going up in price because
Yeah, for sure.
by the time we want to have kids, it's going to be at least $100,000 a year. Or,
I know.
Yeah.
$60,000
And as someone who's
a year. It's
entering
gonna be
college
insane.
right now, like we all know, like
There's an
if you want to
inflation
go
of
to
college.
a certain school,
I'm going to have to start saving for college for my kid right now because by the time I have kids, you know,
Yeah.
if I have kids, whatever, I don't know.
yeah, and there's
Then
some,
it's
there's, if
gonna
there's
be
a school that I
outrageous.
want to
Sure.
go to somewhere in the country, and my parents are just like, no, you can't go there because we can't. Like,
Yeah, you should have
No, but
choice in
afford
America.
I think-
that.
I
And
think
that
what we
should
should-
never be an issue for anybody in this country.
What we should seriously think about is what this is doing to inflation. The fact that people aren't able to pay for schooling means monetary value is going out the window. That
Also,
it just keeps going up and up. Monetary value is going to be nothing in terms of schooling.
the root problem of all of this is that everybody is working in the short term
Yes.
and they don't necessarily see the long-term effects of what they're doing.
Yes.
This can be used to
Capitalism.
explain
Oh, yeah.
climate change. This can be used to explain the college problem that we're talking about. And in the pursuit of profit, you kind of lose sight of the greater good, which
Yes.
is a problem that I'm not sure. I'm not necessarily sure how to eliminate that problem yet.
So, John, are you thinking of a regulation of market? Oh, cutting out a little bit right there. Sorry about that.
I'm not necessarily sure at the moment. I think that putting programs in place that would help the market, that would help companies work in the long term,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
some of them claim to do, but if you look at how the economy is going, that's really not true. It's kind of a dog-eat-dog world, and it always has been. And if we're going to change that, there are some major changes that we need to make.
Yes. I was actually,
Someone commented, yeah, I think Joe said something about that.
yeah, so, you know, I'm thinking about starting my own country.
Yeah,
And,
honestly.
Oh
I'll
my
come with you, man.
gosh.
I'm starting
And-
Puerto Rico. I'm
All right,
Where-
seceding.
where is it gonna
Kyle,
be?
Kyle, can we just not talk about your whole country thing right now? We just
I'm
need to talk
becoming the
about
president of
candidates.
Puerto Rico and
Let's
seceding
talk
from
about
the
the
union.
candidates. All right. Which one are we on now?
We're still on.
so Bernie Sanders, it doesn't seem like there's much to say about Bernie Sanders. He's radical. Should we say he's radical?
Yes.
Is that, dare I say, he's radical?
He is radical.
Is that too
Yeah.
profound?
Well, actually, you know what?
I
what?
fully believe that we need a radical
In today's
president.
world, you're right. We do need someone that's radical because
So-
without having any radical president or any higher up, we won't get any change.
All
Yeah.
these changes we're talking about: free college, free healthcare for. I mean,
You have to be
Medicare
radical.
for all.
I guess they're radical changes.
like
because you have
UBI. These are all giant leaps. And like,
yeah. Well, because you have to majorly change the economy, and that means we're going to
giant,
have.
like, environmental measures too.
Yeah.
These are huge things, but they need to
So-
happen.
But that means we're going to have federal intervention at a state level, right?
Yeah.
So there's going to be major changes in federalism as the ism
yeah, we can't be
and
afraid of major
constitution.
changes.
So, well, I mean, what are we going to do with the Senate? I mean, what about the Republican Senate? Like, what's going to happen? Like, this is going to be hard to pass. The Republican half of the House of Representatives, everything is so 50-50. You know, we're at a house divided. It's just like before the Civil War.
Partisan.
As Abraham Lincoln once
Politics.
said,
Yes.
a house divided cannot stand.
Exactly. And we're at a house
Drops
divided.
mic.
Okay.
And it's going to be so hard to pass things. It's going to be
Yeah, but
increasingly
don't you agree
hard.
we shouldn't be scared of to advocate for like major changes like that?
So
Just
the thing
because-
with major
just because
changes,
it's hard to make major changes.
I can't
no
fully
one's
agree to
denying
that.
It's going to be hard to do that, but like,
So
Why should he not try to do
historically,
it?
coming back from a candidate, from a president like Trump, the candidate afterwards typically fizzles out and doesn't really make any big changes.
Yeah.
So we would have to elect somebody who has the potential to be a strong president and to make the changes necessary. I don't think that right now it's necessarily feasible to make these giant leaps. So.
John was cutting out.
I was cutting out. That's too bad.
It's all right.
You're
We're all
right,
good. We're all good.
So after Trump, I think it's damage control, like right now. So once they're done with damage control, I want to see what they can do in terms of becoming more progressive country.
Okay.
Shout
But
out Phil.
right now, I want to see a
Say the progressive
president.
error.
I want to see a president that can take off where we started and not fizzle out like most people do.
Well, so
I think we
what
can
is-
all agree on that.
What does damage control look like?
Damage control looks
2020.
like repairing international relations.
Okay, here, hold on. I want to just
AOC
add this.
2020.
This is an actual like comment. Just to add, Sanders has stood by his ideas for his entire career and has many actions.
He hasn't acted on them.
Yeah, it's that.
And has many actions to back them up. Warren has changed her views many times and adopted a lot of Bernie's ideas, not the other way.
All right. Well,
that's an interesting
Okay,
point to
that's a
make.
valid point to make.
Whoever commented that, could you please put some of the actions that Bernie has made down, please?
Yeah.
I'm
More
kind of
than one.
interested to see.
we are about
Because
to.
the sense that I get is that he hasn't been very active in the Senate in the past few years that I've been
Yeah,
tracking him.
right. But you were right about Warren,
John is about to
Going
go.
from moderate
I
to
think they're right about
liberal.
Warren, yeah. But
Warren does flip flop right.
I think it's interesting they
But
said
she
that.
doesn't really flip flop. It's like she just like has done like a long term change because of the country's changed a lot since
But
she started in
I
politics.
think it's
I do
important.
respect someone that can change their views. That isn't
Yeah,
completely.
she just
is
changed
adopted,
from a
she's
moderate to a
adopted
li-
his, but he hasn't adopted hers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
I think there's
if his
nothing wrong with
views
her
haven't
adoption
come to
of like,
fruition
new
over
views.
this whole time, he is doing something wrong. And if someone else adopts his views that can actually get something done, I would go with that person.
And our
Okay.
country's very different now from when she
And if
started
she-
in politics. So
yeah,
like,
and
it
if she
makes sense
can-
to change
if
her
she
policies.
if she can credit him with those ideas, but she's the one that gets them done. I'm not worried about who wins in the end, what specific person wins in the end. I'm worried about how our country turns out in the end.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
what it's all for, and people lose sight of that often.
That's what this whole like presidency.
like,
Well,
nonpartisan
John,
vote.
that
Right.
can be a little dangerous sometimes. Just how our country turns out in the end.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you have to find the compromise between the short term and the long term, so as not to focus on, the prevalence of America, right? We don't want to be dictators here.
Okay, how about this? How the world turns out in the end.
Okay.
How the human race turns out in the end. It's
But-
not about individual winners.
But also, how we turn out in the end is also about how we get there. And I want to be happy with how we get there.
Do you agree with Machiavelli?
As in,
The ends justify the means.
the ends justify the means.
Oh.
I
Be
don't
careful
always
this one.
agree with Machiavelli because sometimes what you accomplish, you've ruined other people's lives because of what you've accomplished. And what is the worth of accomplishing things for a certain amount of people when you ruin so many other people?
Mm-hmm.
And as in a collective body of human beings trying to live with each other, you have not accomplished a greater good. You've accomplished a good of minority and a good of persecution. So it gets very tricky. You
Well, I
have
mean,
to-
all of this is very tricky.
Yeah.
Yes, it is very tricky.
It's
but
like yeah.
so back to
That's what we're debating right now.
back to reparations, right? Foreign affairs.
Where
So-
did anyone bring up
okay.
reparations?
Wait,
Okay.
wait, what?
I didn't
So,
say
reparations in 2020.
reparations.
Hold on.
I said damage control
Damage control.
in
Foreign
terms
affairs.
of foreign affairs.
So foreign affairs, right? Sorry, I meant
okay.
damage control.
Reparations. Let's not go there yet.
Okay, so damage control, right? So that means,
All right, here.
I
hold
mean,
on.
now I'm going to be looking for a stress
Kyle,
on foreign
can I
affairs
just-
and
Do we have a
administration.
response?
Yeah, we have a response. I see your point about Warren. It's not a huge issue that she changes her views. Bernie's actions. He voted against the war in Iraq. He filibustered Obamacare because
Okay,
it wasn't enough.
filibustering is stupid. I'm sorry.
What does that mean?
Filibustering is when you make a really long sort of speech in order to put off a bill or something that's about to be signed that you're about to vote on because you don't have the numbers.
Wait, can you
or
give me an
don't wanna
actual
see it now.
definition? Not like your opinionated.
Filibustering is a
That's-
political way to delay a bill.
Yes.
And you
that-
pretty much have to
exactly
like
what I was
stand
saying.
up there and talk incessantly.
Okay, so you
Okay,
think,
but
There's
is that
actually
is that a
there's
strong political move?
Oh, there's a
No,
Parks.
no.
Are you thinking of the Parks and Rec episode where?
No, I have no idea what you're referring to, John.
Okay.
Okay, but even
just
if there are a few
completely
instances of
gave a
Bernie,
definition, but
even if
Yeah,
there
you
are a
did.
few
Yeah.
instances of Bernie like taking action on these things, there
Okay,
are two
voting,
candidates
voting,
for
that's kind of
2020.
part of his job.
Bernie, they both have the same ideas or similar ideas, and Warren is significantly more active. So why would you not vote for her?
Because she changes. Because she changes her views. That's
it's about getting the ideas done.
The point.
Yeah,
that,
but they
the
just
point that
acknowledged
this
that it's
person's
not a
trying
big deal that Warren changed their views, right?
Yeah.
I thought I heard you say that.
I don't know. I just want to know what he or she's point.
It's not a huge issue that she changes her views. That's
Yeah.
a direct quote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just want to know what the issue is about Warren.
Yeah, so
All right.
I not like against Bernie.
No,
it's
in
just
their-
like
in
that I
their
think
opinion-
Warren is like a better option than Bernie because of.
Okay,
Her
this is another
activity.
quote. He also introduced many bills to support his views, such as a bill for Medicare for all, increasing minimum wage, and he protested large companies with treatment of workers.
He wrote a lot of bills, but he didn't pass anything. That's the.
Okay,
Bit
you
of an
can
issue.
write as many bills as you want, but if you aren't going to go into the Senate and convince other people that your bill is worth voting for,
Yeah.
I don't want to see you in
Doing
the presidential position.
Anyone
If
can
you don't
write a bill
talk
for Medicare for all.
To the
It's-
majority and minority whip in the Senate, I swear to God, I will
Okay,
personally
okay.
come to your
We're
door.
getting some jargon in here.
No,
Okay,
but
but
anyone
actually-
can write a bill for Medicare for all. It's like the person.
The
who can
issue is not
implement Medicare for all.
his actions, but the Senate's reaction to his ideas, because the word socialism is scary. I have no issue with Warren. I actually really like her.
Okay, but if our listeners have some free time after this podcast, look up Ted Cruz filibustering in the Senate, and he reads a Dr. Seuss book like to his children over C-SPAN. It's really great. But he filibusters for like 8.5 hours.
He's the
It's
cringiest man
probably
alive.
one of the
Oh my
best
gosh.
things
He's
I've
the
ever seen.
cringiest.
I would
man
probably
alive.
just like read Moby Dick to everyone.
Yeah, because technically when you're on the stand, you're allowed to talk for as long as you want.
Yeah.
That's
All right.
Yeah. So filibustering, it's an interesting move. Anyway, should we move on to Joe Biden?
You know what?
Biden-
I
Has
would like
Warren-
to move on to
hold
Joe
on.
Joe Biden, the
Has
deer in
Warren
headlights.
passed more bills than Sanders?
Wait, what?
Yes.
Yes.
Warren is a beast.
Is that
in
a
the Senate,
fact?
dude.
Is that a fact?
Yeah,
Okay,
that is a
Warren has
fact.
passed more bills than Bernie Sanders.
Yes.
You can look that up.
Yes.
Can we get a number on it? Or is that just not?
Okay, if the person wants to look it up, they can.
Yeah.
But that's just a
We
fact.
don't have the time to do that. I'm sorry.
All right, we're moving on.
But
Yeah,
Biden,
we gotta move on to
name
Biden.
recognition, tons of name recognition, which makes him very electable.
Yeah.
He's more moderate than Warren and Bernie. He is not really. He's not a great speaker. He doesn't respond to questions.
He's ran
quickly
many
like
times.
a lot of his fellow candidates.
He's ran many
gave
times.
his
But he does have
condolences-
experience
He gave his
and-
condolences to the victims of the shooting in Michigan. So
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He makes a lot of mistakes like that. He's not. Doesn't seem
think
like
He's getting old.
the most
Yeah.
sharp guy anymore.
he would be easily influenced by his advisors in the presidential position.
And his whole reliance on Obama's ideas to like further his position. Like,
So so the way I see it, the reason he was put as vice president for Obama was to make white voters happy.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say that.
He's kind of like a doormat.
So I think there are people moving him around politically at this point because I don't get the sense that he can think for himself.
Yeah.
The things that he has done, he has tried to put through a bill that would make it easier to arrest young black men,
Oh,
which I
geez.
think is worth mentioning.
Well, I
That's
mean,
definitely worth
what
mentioning.
is this bill? That
I'll look it
seems
up.
very contextually weird.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, quite an interesting.
I'll find that. You guys keep talking.
Yeah.
So Biden's big thing is like he hears Warren talking about like we're just gonna implement Medicare for all, but what he wants and pretty much across like all subject matter is like to move toward these radical ideas, but more incrementally, so as to appeal to like
Which is a
more moderate
moderate.
audience.
I think that's a good idea. I just don't think. I mean, just a background from my personal like mind. I've heard that Biden has switched his views many times,
yeah.
and that since he's been in the business for such a long time, it's really hard to trust him to
Yeah.
know what view he's actually going to follow.
Yeah.
Rather than if we
Yeah.
elect him, he could just change his views, and then we're all just
Because
screwed.
parties flip. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so name recognition has been a huge thing for him, but now it's been like a few debates, and he's still high. Like has a high place on the polls. He's first.
But
by
the
a
thing
lot.
is,
So
I'm
why is
scared that he's gonna, that he's gonna get in office and he's gonna realize I'm not gonna. All these things are not gonna pass, or like.
So why does he have most of the support? Is it all name recognition still, even after all these debates have happened?
So if I can butt in,
Yeah,
I'm
go ahead.
going to say, so he was at a fundraiser and he kind of had like an off the cuff comment. So he's talking about. So he's been around a long time. So
Yeah.
he has worked with senators who were segregationists. Let's just put that into perspective.
Okay.
Because we're all very young. We don't really
Experience
remember that
Yeah.
time.
Or
So
we just weren't
he's
alive.
he's very
That's
very
just to
old.
give
I'm sorry.
perspective of
he's
how old he
76.
is.
He's 76 years old. He's been in this game for a while.
Sanders hasn't been in the
So-
game, but he's old.
That means he's going to be 80.
Yeah. He's
Yeah.
talking.
Sanders-
So
Sanders is old too, though.
in this
I
quote,
know.
in this
Yeah.
quote, he was talking about a racist Senator James Eastland. So here's the quote: "At least there was some civility. We got things done. We didn't agree on much of anything." Biden said.
Wow, that's a little
Today, you look at the other side and you're the enemy.
Oh wow.
Oh
So-
That was a
my
Trump-like
gosh.
comment.
That was
There are
that,
bad people on both sides.
Oh my gosh.
so that was quite interesting. I
But
think
then again, how long ago was this comment made?
this was at a fundraiser, a recent
In
fundraiser.
recent.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know.
Okay. So here's the thing with back to Joe Biden appealing to
You were
moderates.
talking about
Right.
yeah,
I have
talking about how
another
he-
So
quote.
he's still on top
By
of
the
the
way,
charts.
I
Yeah.
have another quote. Okay, so to those who may say he's old-fashioned, this is his response. I know the new left tells me that this is old-fashioned. Well, guess what? If we can't reach a consensus in our system, what happens? It encourages and demands the abuse of power by a president. That's what it does. You have to be able to reach consensus under our system, our constitutional system of separation of powers. So he wants to work across the board, which I can understand.
Yeah.
But I just think that name recognition at this point is what's bolstering his poll numbers.
You still think name recognition after all this time is still
It
bolstering? his
really
polls?
hasn't been that much time. The presidential candidacy, that race has not started up in earnest yet. This is just the very beginning.
It is just the
Do you
beginning,
think that
my
he's going to
brethren.
have a drop off in a few weeks?
A few
because
weeks,
of-
maybe not, but I think
I mean,
Month or
once
two.
Bernie's pulling over him in some polls.
Okay.
he is going to peter out eventually. If he
You think?
can't, if he can't back up his name recognition with anything, if people like eventually realize that
So you're saying
he
he's
is
all
not
ethos?
Barack Obama.
He's all ethos right now.
Right now, he's ethos. If we're gonna,
Yeah. He's
He
using
just
an
needs
appeal
to
ethos.
give. He just needs to give all the other appeals.
So,
But it's just
So-
like he's like not everyone's as progressive as Elizabeth Warren, and people in this country want to see those ideas happen, but just like they are questioning the feasibility of doing that, like in the next 4 years. So Biden's plan to do that incrementally and do it slowly, and just be more precise about it.
well,
is appealing
yeah,
to
but
moderates.
do we have time to just dip our toes in the water, or do we have
No,
to
I-
really jump
No,
down
I
the
think we have to
slide?
jump down completely.
Yeah.
very quickly.
So that's
I'm
the
saying
thing.
that's its appeal to moderates, though.
Yeah, that
So,
might not be
electability
good.
is-
Yeah,
yeah.
in office if we're just gonna slowly get in the pool using the steps.
Yeah, no. I
Maybe
don't
right
either.
now we just need to go fully overboard.
I just think
We can just,
electability
like,
is a
dive
thing.
in head
Unfortunately,
first. Yes.
electability is something you have to look at.
Okay, so I'm reading. So the crime law that I was talking about was in 1994. So the Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act, now known as the 1994 Crime Law, was the result of years of work by Biden, who oversaw the Senate Judiciary Committee at the time and other Democrats. It was an attempt to address a big issue in America at the time. Crime, particularly violent crime, had been rising for decades, starting in the 1960s but continuing on and off through the 1990s, in part due to the crack cocaine epidemic.
Oh,
So politically, the legislation was also a chance for Democrats, including the recently elected President Bill Clinton, to wrestle the issue of crime away from
What a guy.
Republicans. Okay, so polling suggested that Americans were very, very concerned with crime back then, and after
Well,
George
that was the '90s. That was the Reagan era.
after George H.W. Bush defeated Michael Dukakis in the 1988 presidential election by painting Dukakis on soft on crime, Democrats were acutely worried that Republicans were beating them on the issue. So Biden kind of reveled in the politics of the 1994 law, and he was bragging about it
Right.
after it passed the liberal wing of the Democratic Party, and was now for 60 death penalties, 70 enhanced penalties, 100,000 cops, and 125,000 new state prison cells, which are some interesting numbers. So the law pretty much imposed tougher prison sentences at the federal level and encouraged states to do the same. And it provided funds for states to build more prisons, aimed to fund 100,000 more cops.
For-profit jails.
And backed grant programs that encourage police officers to carry out more drug-related arrests. Which is an escalation of the war on drugs.
Red flags right there.
Which it has been proven repeatedly that Reagan used it as a way to get rid of black people from voting against him in the next
a lot of red flags.
Yeah, so
a lot of red flags.
I know that
huge concern.
The 90s obviously.
I just read an entire article into the podcast.
Wow.
The 90s obviously.
I thought it was interesting.
No, it was interesting.
So the 90s, obviously, the Reagan administration is no longer in effect, but you're still part of that Reagan era, and Joe Biden is stuck in the Reagan era.
He's very much a product of his times.
Yes. Okay.
Which isn't going to apply to today's climate.
Yeah. And back to climate. What are his views on climate change? Is it more
I haven't heard anything about
Notice
his views
how we're
on climate
finding
change.
trouble like with the specific policy of people on climate change is because they're all just like saying the same vague things, or most of them are.
I think most of them, except for John Hickenlooper, who is actually a scientist, don't necessarily completely understand the gravity of the situation.
Yes.
Yeah, no.
But John Hickenlooper is out.
Jay Inslee did. Just want to put that
So I also just a summary. Do you also think that, you know, with border control, are all of these candidates sort of saying the same thing?
I don't know enough about that. I can give you my
haven't read
personal
up on
opinion
border
border
control.
control.
I mean, no, I don't. I mean, you can go into that if you want, but I just think it's very much like climate change. They all just keep saying these things, almost like they're one-upping each other about what they want.
Yeah, they all say
no one's standing
DACA.
by it.
Well, they're all
no one's
jerking
standing
around
by
like
anything. Is that what you're
puppets
saying?
trying to appeal to the Democratic vote.
They all talk about DACA, and they have like these vague phrases like they're gonna give everyone a path to citizenship, and they don't actually say like what that entails.
Yeah, it's how are we gonna do that? How do we have the money to do that? Are you gonna take down Trump's wall? Like,
that is concerning.
Yeah, I'm just, you know, as a soon-to-be
Is
taxpayer.
the wall fully built yet? That's the real
Pretty
question.
pretty much. I think so.
Okay.
Jeez, don't even remind me.
Yeah, but so as a taxpayer,
That's his legacy.
you know, a lot of this
That's
is
a fact.
concerning. A lot of this socialist leap is concerning, right? Me, my conservative taxpayer self, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your taxpayer self.
Yeah, I don't want.
You don't
Soon
pay
to be
taxes.
taxpayer.
You
Soon
don't-
to be taxpayer.
Actually,
pay
technically,
taxes.
you are a taxpayer.
I have paid taxes.
No,
I
he
pay
pays taxes for
statutory
himself
taxes. I
first.
We get paid
pay
under the table, so
Medicare
you-
taxes. Okay.
You don't yourself, no.
Yes, you do.
Well, I did for work when I worked.
No,
Yeah.
but it wasn't for yourself.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, with this, you know, socialist era that we might go into in
Just
American
be careful with the word
history.
socialism, but go on.
Yeah, well, we can say it's pretty generally socialist,
Moving in that direction.
moving in that direction.
But
So
let's not think
we're
of
entering
radical
this.
socialism when we say socialism.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're entering a socialist era, and what is that going to mean for taxpayers? Obviously, higher taxes, and if we raise this wage, right? If we raise the minimum wage, or if we have universal basic income, is it going to be enough to compete with taxes that are also being raised? So, you know, what are we going to do? Anybody or no?
What are we gonna do about what? Sorry.
Nah, it's okay.
Okay,
If
so
we raise the wages, what are we gonna do about what?
then
the last-
taxes are also going to be
Okay.
raised.
for
What
the
are we gonna
last
do?
So it's
3
just,
days
what if
or
it
so,
evens itself out? Yeah.
I've been reiterating this idea that in order to make everything work, we need to streamline all of these systems,
Yes.
and specifically the tax code,
Yeah.
which is extremely nebulous right now,
Yeah.
and it's very hard to make sense of. And the way that richer people don't have to necessarily pay as many taxes as people who are less privileged, they hire accountants that can work through the tax code, and find loopholes in which they save a lot of money every year.
Yeah.
And if we standardize the tax code, if we streamline the tax code, we'll be able to reallocate funds in a much more efficient way,
Okay.
which would help to make taxes just like for the necessities of the programs we're currently working on.
Okay. So we're just gonna hit them with cold, hard
Cash.
fiscal responsibility in
Cash.
2020.
in Nordic
Well,
nations,
I
baby.
think if
come on.
you identify yourself as a fiscal conservative in any way,
Yes.
you would agree with.
Yes, but I agree with less taxation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
of my fear of wages going up, taxes going up,
Yeah.
and then it just evens out, and then we have inflation.
Dude, what if you have to pay your taxes with your universal income?
That's what would happen.
That's sad. And then you
I
have to
know. Well,
raise, and then you have to
one of the
raise
points
the
of the
universal
UBI,
income.
One of the points of the UBI is like that it circulates back
What?
into the economy because you spend it,
Yeah.
and it circulates back into making the country better,
Well, so you have
And
to
it circulates back
figure
into,
out that
like,
balance.
making small businesses more able to operate.
All right,
freely.
so now let us put these candidates on the threshing floor and
Why don't you
separate
each make,
the
like, a top-
chaff for the corn.
Can we just
from
like finish
from
off
the
a little bit
crop.
because it's pretty late and we're all
That's what I'm saying.
okay.
We could
Cool.
each like say our
Yeah.
top 3 or just our number 1.
Our top 3.
My number one,
Oh god.
personally, Cory Booker, but he's not really. Number 2, Yang. Number 3, I'll go with Warren. Yeah.
All right.
My number 1 is Yang, but for like, I want to say that a ticket that I would love is Warren Yang. So yeah,
Yang as vice.
yeah,
I mean,
it's unlikely
that'd be
because of
sad
the
to
fact
see
that
though, because he wouldn't be able to do as much.
yeah, but it would just like get him more name recognition in the future, set him up to
And
run
maybe
later.
he could run. Yeah.
Okay, so my top 3 would be, it's tough to make a choice here. I'm going to go with my number 1 as Elizabeth Warren. My number 2, it's a toss-up between Yang and... This is a tough one. If Bernie gets it together and he can actually
Yeah.
get what he says done,
Yeah.
I would not mind seeing him in the presidential seat.
I'm glad that though we all have very different views, we were all able to come to this conclusion of similar
Wait.
candidates.
Before
Yeah.
we end
Hold
it,
on,
I
hold on,
would
Listen,
hold on.
we
I
all
gotta
said
say,
yay.
wait, I haven't said my thing yet.
Yeah.
Relax. All right. No, I'm very, very not caught up on any of these politics, but so I'm a good judge for just the average American right
Okay,
now.
sure.
Right.
Just based
Per
off
capita,
of
baby.
based off of what you guys were talking about, the most convincing candidate's definitely Yang for me right now. But because of the fact that you're talking about tax at the end with the universal income,
Yeah.
now I'm starting to think that it might not be a really good idea, but I think it's still a good idea. So it's between Yang and Booker for me.
Yeah, and we have we have right to left right here. We all said Yang. I was talking about from the start, Yang appealing to conservatives, moderates, and liberals. So I just want to
It's just because math is a universal language.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's just end
Yeah.
with that.
But so,
Okay.
so here's the thing. Oh, wait,
I know I
before
talk
we
about
talk
Yang
about
too much
Hong
just 'cause
Kong
he's
really
gone.
quick,
Yeah.
I just want to
Oh,
talk
that was a
about
thing?
why I love Cory Booker as a Republican.
sorry, I just, like,
or
haven't
as a
looked into Hong
conservative.
Kong
I'm
at
not
all, but-
necessarily a Republican.
All right, go ahead.
So, as representing Republicans, even though I'm not really Republican, so
Okay.
Cory
Say
Booker,
conservatives, dude. It's fine.
Cory Booker is a freaking god representing the consumer with trade and trust laws, baby. Okay? He is just representing the people and their rights, and he knows where it's at. So it'd be really cool to see him in office because a lot of times there's constant, like very, very heated debate about what companies, certain utility companies are doing as monopolies. And he wants to bring that
Monopolies.
into the utility sector of the economy,
Yeah.
which has been sort of out of the way of trade and trust laws. So I just want to see that. And that was my 2 cents right there. But so John, on
Okay,
Hong Kong, I know you want to say something.
You've probably heard about this on the news. There have been protests going on in Hong Kong for many weeks now. They've become increasingly violent, and it's pretty much over how much control China, mainland China, that government, the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, has over Hong Kong itself. And I want to read you guys a pretty powerful speech by one of the protesters. He's kind of just like in a line of protesters yelling at the police, but
Yeah.
he's also yelling at the government.
Yeah.
Go for it.
And I think this was intended to get out to like the whole world, mainly because he spoke in English. Okay,
Oh.
so
Wow. Very
you
powerful.
call all of us cockroaches, and that is what Hitler called the Jews before they massacred them.
Wow, that's
You are
that is a
planning
very
for another Holocaust. This is massacre. He's yelling that part. What Martin Luther King Jr. said Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere! Exclamation point. You have the opportunity to show the world how civilized China can be. But you know what? You have failed badly. His English isn't the best. We want freedom, and freedom is what
Wants
we
us.
will get! Exclamation point. Give me liberty or give me death.
Oh wow.
Patrick Henry, baby.
Patrick
Wow.
Henry,
Hell yeah.
because Hong Kong
That's made its way to China.
is the land of the brave. And
Oh yeah.
we are brave! Exclamation point. I'm not really doing it justice, but it would kind of distort through the
We
mic if
are
I actually played the video.
brave.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty powerful,
That was powerful, yes.
speech. It's more powerful if you actually listen to the actual speech. But it just, there is a fight for democracy going on right now
Yes,
in Hong Kong, which
definitely.
I think in terms of current events and world events, everybody should be aware of.
Yes.
So if you have the chance tonight, just look that up, do some research on it.
Yeah.
Look up what extradition laws are, because that's pretty interesting as well.
Yeah, extradition. Also, look up, American history of extradition. It's very interesting with what it goes back and forth in Colombia. Anyway,
Also,
so
we didn't talk about foreign policy at all tonight,
Just
which
wrap
is like
no, we did a little bit,
wrap it up.
but so
Yeah, I think it's time to wrap it up.
Yeah.
I just want to say, with as a libertarian leaning perspective, right? China scares me. Okay, and I think I cannot stress enough to the viewers right now that you go and give attention to the press of Hong Kong and you share this to other people, because the more attention it gets, the better their situation will come out to be. Okay? So that is what we need right now in this time of crisis. They've been protesting for what was it, 15 weeks? Was it 15 weeks, John?
I think it's up to 17 weeks right now.
17 weeks.
Most of
That's
the
a
summer.
long time.
That's a long time.
So
Yeah. A
lot of
cannot
commitment.
stress it enough. Thank you so much for tuning in with us tonight.
Gang 2020.
We should be back soon to discuss more as
Really?
events progress. I am Kyle Gunning, your host. To the left of me is.
Satchel Moore.
To the left of him is.
John Kelly.
To the left of him is.
Carter Ramsey.
Thank
Wait,
you
I thought
so
we weren't
much.
using names.
This has been.
You
no.
just said to the left of though. What about the right of?
I'm bitter.
Then
You
you
a
just go
leftist?
back.
You a leftist?
yeah.
Yes, Kyle's
All right,
the
all right,
leftist
let's
here.
wrap it up.
I'm an,
Let's wrap it up.
I'm a leftist ideologue. Anyway,
All right.
thank you
almost a
so
good
much for
ending.
joining Tea Time Topics.
That was almost like the perfect ending.
Oh, man, Charlie Horse. Man.
That was 2
My legs
hours.
are not feeling it.
Someone go scare Sophie.